So we can break apart to hit me if I seem a little unimpressed with this. An antisocial pessimist, but usually I don't mess with this, and I know.
Hello everybody, Short here, and today I'm going to be talking about how to care for a veiled chameleon. These guys are not for the beginner pet owner. If you are thinking about getting a chameleon and it's your first chameleon, I recommend getting a veiled chameleon as a first-time chameleon owner. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Let me get him back in his cage. This is Ringo. He's a very healthy little veiled chameleon. He is about I think around 5 or 6 months old. Now I want to show you how to tell if they're a male or a female. So if you can see, let me get better lighting here. That little bump on the back of his heel right there, only the males will have that. So it's very easy to tell for chameleons. You can tell almost right out of the egg. So for baby veileds, probably until they're like a year and a half old, this cage is perfectly fine. I think it's like 2 feet tall by 1 foot or something. I don't really know too much about this cage, but this is a good size until they're about a year and a half old. When they're a year and a half old, you can go ahead and buy their cage. So the cage that they're going to need when they're an adult is a 4 foot tall by 2 feet wide by 2 feet wide cage. So 4 foot tall by 2 feet by 2 feet. And that's like the minimum, I think, for an adult. I recommend starting a baby off in something smaller because they can get stressed very easily. Now, as far as lighting goes, you really don't have to have 2 heat bulbs, but I have 2 heat bulbs just because I want to. These are 50-watt bulbs. That doesn't really matter, though. You want a basking spot. For a baby that's less than a year and a half old, you're probably going to want a basking spot of the upper 80s to the low 90s. For an adult, you want 90 to 100 degrees on their basking spot. Then you need a Reptisun 5.0 UVB bulb, because I have to have UVB. And then as far as humidifying and stuff goes, I have a Reptifogger on here to keep it humid. You can see that going. And then I also have a little dripper to provide a slow drip of water for him to drink from. So that's what I would recommend, getting a Reptifogger and a little dripper. I think that's the least amount of money, and that works just fine. But if you want to go more fancy, you can get a misting system. Whenever I upgrade his cage, I'm going to be getting a Mist King, but they're really expensive, so I can't really afford one now. But this will work just fine if you don't want to afford one, if you can't afford one of those, but they're better. So as far as like what you're going to put in the cage, all I say is a bunch of plants. You can't put too many plants. So as you can see in this cage, I have a lot of stuff. Down here at the bottom, I have a stick to help him get onto this stick, and then live plants are always good. They appreciate those. If you are going to have a live plant in a pot, though, I recommend putting rocks on top of it so your chameleon doesn't, if there's a cricket in there or something, they don't accidentally ingest dirt or potting soil. So I just say a lot of plants everywhere for them to climb around in. And then for their basking spot, I just use one of these bendable sticks, and Rango likes it. But so that's basically it for the cage. Now, as far as food goes, I feed mine about like 1/2-inch crickets, and he's 5 or 6 months old. If you get one that's like really tiny, which I don't really recommend because it can be a little iffy sometimes, they'll pass away because they require very specific care. I mean, all chameleons do, but especially the little tiny ones. So if you have a little tiny one, though, that you know is not going to be able to eat even 1/4-inch crickets, then feed it fruit flies, flightless fruit flies, and then about once a month put some crickets in there. And if he doesn't eat them, who cares? Eventually, you'll start seeing them eat those crickets, and whenever they eat those crickets, you can take them off their fruit flies. Now, I bought this guy, and I never had to have him on fruit flies. He was just on crickets straight away. But I've had chameleons in the past where they have to go on fruit flies at first. So that's not it for the video, almost, but that's going to be it for feeding and cage requirements. You do not need a substrate for the cage because they're arboreal and they're going to spend like 90% of their time at the top of the cage, or 99% of the time at the top of their cage. Now, handling these guys, if you have a male chameleon, or really any male chameleon, you want to hold them quite often, but not too much. I recommend at least 3 times a week for especially a male, because they will get very territorial and aggressive if you don't hold them enough when they're adults. And I mean that. Yeah, but they can get very mean and stuff when they're adults if you don't hold them at least 3 times a week as they're growing up. But I hold mine probably more than 3 times a week. And I'll kind of show you them eating, because when they eat, obviously they shoot out their tongue, and it's really cool. I feed mine on crickets and also the occasional mealworm. He probably gets a couple mealworms every single day, though, because I give them to him as treats. So that's just how they eat. They shoot out their tongue. And chameleons are really cool because they change colors, they shoot out their tongue to eat. They have those awesome little feet, and they're just really awesome, beautiful, sweet animals if you hold them enough. So yeah, guys, that's going to be about it for this video. If you get a chameleon, please take proper care of them. And I do not recommend getting one for a first-time reptile owner. But yeah, that's going to be about it for this video. Bye, Felicia!